Welcome back, guys. That was indeed a very short break. We're right back into Champion Select for Game 2. The teams have swapped sides. We're going to have DPS moving over to blue side and the Rams on red side with that counter pick in the draft. They pushed Talus pretty far down his own priority, his own personal preference in terms of what he likes to go for last game in the draft with a lot of jungle bans, but it didn't matter, Adam. And they're just gonna ban away the Zac this time around.
Yeah, I think that the Zac ban here makes sense if you don't have an answer to it, or if your answer was sort of quelled by the Poppy. The Poppy didn't really do much that game, as we said. Talos was just able to play around that. You might as well just ban it out if you don't have your answer. The Tristana ban away from your bad connection is no surprise as well. They're just going to ban out the players that did the best there, and for good reason, I think. Banning out Talos and your bad connection to make them go into something different. Sometimes that's the best way to approach it. Just take away what beat you and try and face whatever else they may have in store.
Absolutely. See what your bad connection decides to go for this game, as well as Talus. They will be forced to play something else here. They do have first pick. See if they want to give that over. And yeah, I saw that one coming. That's third most played, I believe, for bad connection after the Lucian and the Tristana is the Jinx. So no problem there. Just going to go ahead and lock that one in for your first pick. Deny it from Ahata as well. And looking pretty good so far here, I think, for DPS.
Yeah, and realistically, if the Jinx is left up and available from on blue side, you just pick it up. It's the best AD carry in the game. Yes, you can say, wow, 12.5B, yeah, they really nerfed it. No, they didn't nerf it. It's still Jinx, right? But the Caitlyn answer is really interesting, especially considering she hasn't really been that S tier AD carry for a couple of patches now. It's really been replaced by Zeri, Aphelios, but there are some changes to those champions that are a little bit heavier, so maybe Ahata just feels more comfortable on the Caitlyn, wants to pick that up, and they're going to take away that Lulu as well as the Soraka comes through for Fierce Sparrow. We were just talking about how it's not only Soraka for Fierce Sparrow, but the tried and true. Might as well pull it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't have the Lulu was denied him this time around, of course. It was picked away by Asian Damon. So it will be the Soraka, another enchanter, another supportive pick here for Fierce Sparrow. See if he's able to find a solo kill on the Raka like he was on the Lulu. Could be exciting. It will be the Nico once again for Queen Lyre. Looked absolutely fantastic on that in game number 1, I believe, was Deathless 4-0 and 8, if I recall correctly, on the Nico. So great pick up there to round out their first round over here on the side of DPS. And I think the Caitlyn does make some sense just because I feel like if you're going to win against Bad Connection and Fierce Sparrow, you have to deny them that dominance in the laning phase. And Caitlyn Lulu, I mean, if there are two champions that are going to be able to get that done, are going to be able to win lane against DPS here, I think those are probably the two to do it. It will be the Volley Bear to round out first round for Rams.
It's really about what they need to sort of shore up, and I think that the laning phase, as we said, was very strong from DPS last game. So if you're taking a more lane dominant duo, it's sort of flipping the tables just a little bit, saying, hey, if we're ahead, maybe we can take it over from there. But interestingly enough, the Nico gets picked up again. I don't have any issue with that, but it's blind picked here, and it isn't immediately answered either. This Volibear pick very likely going to dissipate. So curious to see how the draft has sort of evolved when we switch sides here. Last game, the mid laners were picked up extremely early on into the draft, but this time around, we'll see what ends up coming through for Talus specifically. I think is what I'm curious about, as well as for Please Don't Run It, because I think they have yet to really show their true colors in the BTL season overall. They are a very good player. It's just about, can we see that performance come through?
The Victor has been banned away from Please Don't Run It this time around. Some other common picks for them include the Veigar, the Vex, the Zillion, the Syndra. So could see some other kind of AP scaling option with Burst. That's going to be the Pyke lock-in. I think, is that Pyke mid, Adam?
It could be Pyke mid here.
It could be Lulu solo lane also.
Yeah, I would be less surprised if it is Pyke mid lane here. Realistically, if you want to be sort of a more roaming style mid laner, Pyke is one of those champions that has worked incredibly well. I mean, I know recently Dave Mon has hit rank 1 as playing primarily Pyke mid, so it's going to work out quite well, but Talus, they're pulling it
Okay.
out.
Whipping out the Ivern. Gonna be playing the tree here for game 2, or one of the trees, I
Okay.
should say. Skinny tree. And the Irelia also locked away for Messiah this time around. So another duelist for the top laner of DPS here. And the Trundle to round things out for the Rams. So who do we think is going top lane into the Irelia, and who is going jungle into the Ivern?
I
It's a
think
tough one.
it's more likely that we see the Volibear go top lane here. It's
Mm.
generally a little bit better than Trundle top lane, just in terms of strictly laning in that sense, but Trundle can do quite well into Aurelia because you're able to just take a bite out of her AD. The main thing I'm curious
Yeah.
about is how this Pyke ends up interacting with this game, because if it is, please don't run playing the Pyke mid lane here, they're going to do quite well into Ivern because the death from below is not blocked up by shields. And the main thing, it just goes right through shield, so you're able to go through the Ivern specifically, but not able to go through the Soraka heals. So putting it support isn't as strong, I want to say, but at
Okay.
the same time, this is Talus, whose Discord PFP is Ivern walking. Like, out of every single PFP I've ever seen, it's the strangest one. It's just Ivern walking down mid lane, so this guy's definitely confident on the Ivern, and I'm curious to see what sort of builds we see, what the pathing is, and how they play this champion out.
Yeah, really, really exciting stuff. It seems like there's a lot of supportive champions on the side of DPS this time around, with the Ivern, as well as the Soraka, of course, and the Nico, to me, has damage, of course, as we saw last game, but fits kind of into that supportive champion box as well, with all of the setup that she offers, and is mostly burst in terms of damage. So I think it's going to be even more on your bad connection's shoulders in this game, perhaps, to really carry. Of course, Messiah on the Irelia can do some carrying of his own. But, top lane we saw last game did go pretty evenly. It looks like it will actually be the Trundle for Kingfisher up there. So I think I do like this a little bit more into the Irelia specifically. I'm excited to see if top lane once again goes even, or if one of these players is able to find more of an advantage this time around.
I think that with the Trundle going top lane, as we said, just taking a bite out of the AD, Kingfisher has agency in this lane. Aurelia can be a champion that it's feast or famine in a lot of ways. You will either pop off or you will struggle in a lot of ways. So it's really about how well Trundle is able to lane against Messiah specifically, because once that Vamp Scepter comes through, once you start building towards the Blade of the Ruin King, Aurelia is a different beast. So I'm expecting a very early Bramble Vest. I'm expecting even the Ignite maybe to come through from Trundle before the Hullbreaker comes through, and they're just going to sit in that side lane. So Aurelia is a champion that can be very polarizing. I'm expecting Talus to spend a lot of time top lane, though, because Ivern Aurelia, think about the combo. It's kind of disgusting.
Yeah, they can set up for each other with the CC there, shields and healing.
Aurelia getting it
really obnoxious
is the main thing. You basically just get to click on the Ivern, or on whoever's rooted up by Ivern, and Aurelia's like, hey, instead of using my Q as my dash, I just get an Ivern dash and I auto attack. So it's a pretty strong combo.
Yeah, absolutely. But Volibear Trundle, no slouches in the early game themselves. So it's really exciting to watch how this entire top side is going to play out as well, right? Because both of the mid laners also have a lot of setup. So we could see Queen Lyre and Please Don't Run It moving around the map pretty early on here. Teaming up with their junglers, trying to find those early plays, perhaps towards that top side of the map. But I really want to see, I'm curious if Dissipate is going to go for an early invade onto the Ivern. Ivern isn't necessarily the easiest champ to invade, I think. I haven't played a lot of Ivern myself, but just because he's able to theoretically take camps so quickly can make him a little bit difficult to really punish in that way. But, in terms of combat power, Trundle Volibear Pyke in the early game is so scary. Like, I really want to see if they can find some kind of aggressive play really early on.
And I sort of want to dispel a little bit of, it's sort of like a rumor that has come through from League that Ivern doesn't have early game damage. Ivern's early game damage is pretty insane. As someone who has played Ivern more than I'd like to admit. Because I lost the bet. Iron's early game damage is not bad, especially when you go through the bushes and you get that on-hit damage. It can stack up quite quickly because it's magic damage in the early game, which a lot of champions don't have a whole lot of, so any of that base armor that comes through isn't really taken into account. If Trundle takes a bite out of Ivern, they're not really losing much in damage, and the shield utility, the root, there's a lot that Ivern can still do in the early game. Yes, in a 1v1 they aren't ideal, but I highly doubt that Talus is looking for invades at all. If anything, these lanes that have been set up, the Nico, the Aurelia, are going to push in early on into Trundle Pike, which makes it harder to invade the Ivern because you won't have solo lane priority.
Okay, Adam, do you have a winner for Game 2 Champion Select? You have a prediction for us?
Ivern wins.
Ivern wins. You heard it here first, folks. See the Ivern from Talus going up against the Volibear from Dissipate and the Pike mid for Please Don't Run It. Game 2 of tonight's first matchup right after the short break. Welcome back, everybody, for Game 2 of the night. It was the Rams losing out pretty severely in Game number 1. They have swapped sides now, moving over to red side with a very potent early game composition. But it's on the other side for DPS. It's Talus on his Ivern. They're stacking up. They're going for an early play. Invade into the enemy topside jungle. Trundle will spot them out, dodges away on the root. Looking like he should be able to escape here. Emote game strong from Talus. Trundle going to be able to walk it out. And nothing doing for DPS in the early game. Looked like potentially a spicy start. They will open themselves up to a bottom side invade here, Adam.
Yeah, and I think, unsurprisingly here, the counter invade will come through. This is scary, though, because if Your Bad Connection or Fear Sparrow end up walking a little bit too close to the sun, they might end up getting burned for it. I don't think that they realize, though, that or maybe they don't remember. Ivern doesn't need a leash. Ivern, you cannot leash for Ivern at all. So, Fear Sparrow. Oh, no.
No, there was a ward in the bush! Fear Sparrow! The Soraka is ignited, burning down, flashes away, tries to stay alive, hits the blast cone, but the last auto attack. Caitlyn has the range, and now she also has the money. Hata, first blood.
It's exactly what we were saying. It's like, don't walk in, just understand that you've most likely just given up your red buff at that point, especially when you're looking for a 5-man invade. Sometimes it's always good to have maybe the Soraka sit down there on the bottom side, drop a ward down and say, hey guys, there's someone coming here, but they sent all 5 up to the top side and they end up getting punished for it.
Absolutely right there, Adam. Will be an early advantage now for the Rams, which is exactly what they need in order to make this composition work, right? So, Electrocute on the Nico. Very nice there. Able to get a nice little proc onto the Pike. Also, Hail of Blades for Please Don't Run It. Very standard. Makes a lot of sense. So this Caitlyn Lulu lane, you know, drafted to get this lane priority, but a lot of rockets connecting. Talus with the invade, forced to flash very early on here.
It was standard to expect them to go for a little bit of an invade there. Realistically, what I would have preferred is if they had started on the Raptors and just gone right to the red buff before leaving, smiting away the red buff, and then just clearing out the rest of your camps. That probably would have been slightly better. The Ivern not going to mind this too much, though, because they are a champion that once you hit level 3, it's sort of like one of those tank top laners. Like, Malphite, once you hit level 6, you're basically done. You've done everything that you need. You have your ultimate, but Ivern as well. Level 3 and level 6 are sort of the big breakpoints there. After that, the levels don't really matter as much. So long as you get level 3 to have some early game agency, followed by level 6 to get Daisy, that's really all you need on Ivern, and the rest of it is just sort of funneling the rest of your team.
Yeah. Well, Talus, we'll see if he can hit those breakpoints nice and early, see if he can make his own early impact here in the game as he was able to last time around. Hata and Ace and Damon down here are getting pushed in, but that's a lot of damage onto Soraka. Caitlyn forced to back away, though, from the silence, but Dissipate is here. The Volibear going for the early gank to flash in, but Talus here for the counter gank. Soraka getting extremely low, but Fear Sparrow able to kite out the bear. Now Dissipate taking a lot of damage. Oh, but it's going to be Talus who gets shot in the head. Caitlyn picks that one up. Your connection out of mana. Flashes, but Caitlyn goes into the bush. It's going to be a double kill for Hata. Fear Sparrow now the last surviving member. The Piltover Peacemaker just barely not enough range, and Hata will just have to settle for 3, but Caitlyn is having a great early game so far.
And I think Jinx was looking for the last auto attack with the rocket, but had quite literally missed 1 mana on it. It's the nerfs. It's the 12.5 speed nerfs. The rockets are now 20 mana once again at level 1 on your what is it, fish bones? Pow pow, that's what it is. So, you know, that's the mana difference right there. Ends up paying off, and now Caitlyn's sitting at 3 and 0.
That's the flash into the EQ. Is he dead? No, there wasn't enough damage for Queen Lyre. Pike able to undertow his way out of that one. The reset was stopped at Queen Lyre. The Nico took 2 tower shots. Oh, Mizaya, very cheeky there, able to land the flawless duet, but I think he's in some trouble now. The pillar comes down. Trundle with a level up, has the exhaust, and just takes an absolute bite out of the Irelia there. 4 for 0 for the Rams in the early game. Talus with another aggressive invade, but your mid laner was dead, buddy. What are you doing over there? The bear is hungry. He's looking for a meal. This tree is looking pretty tasty. He comes down. There's the Q into the swipe, and it's Dissipate on the board.
Yeah, Dissipate able to get their first kill there, and unfortunately for the side of DPS, they're falling into sort of their... I want to call it the ego trap in a lot of ways. They won game 1 in such a way that they feel this extra confidence going into game number 2, but WCU Rams completely resetting the feel of this game, getting early advantages. They got first blood. They've got a 3-0 Caitlyn, and Talus is just trying to find a way to stay relevant on this Ivern, but it's one of those things where you have to be so careful invading solo as an Ivern, especially when you know Queen Lyre and Messiah aren't in their lanes. They aren't available to rotate in as necessary. The 1v1 versus Dissipate will never go in Ivern's favor. And now, especially, we look at the state of the game, it's going to be more difficult for Ivern to find these sort of invades if they want to go for that. So, bot lane, oh my.
Taking a lot of damage there. Yeah, Caitlyn is so strong now, sitting on Noon Quiver plus Pickaxe versus just a dagger and a longsword for Jinx. The itemization is very far from even down here. Talus making his way back down, but I feel like you just got to sack bottom lane at this point. I mean, if they can get the jump on Caitlyn and just burst her out, maybe they have a chance, but she just eased forward. Not able to get that last auto attack, though. Talus looking for the root. Zap not going to connect. And once again, Jinx is completely out of mana.
Yeah, it's tough because of how much those rockets cost now. The Zap is not cheap either. Yes, you're keeping Ahada sort of a little bit behind in terms of farm, but this wave state isn't in the best of places either. The shield exploding actually messes up that wave a little bit more for your bad connection, and with no support available now, she's going to end up in a situation where she hopes Ahada just hard pushes. I want to see this Caitlyn just not push at all, just stop auto-attacking and freeze the wave, but looks like they both have the same idea to push out. And interestingly enough, looking at the mid lane, the CS is going exactly how you'd expect it. Queen Lyre taking a massive lead up against this Neeko. This is what you do as Pyke. You don't care about how much farm you get. You just sort of exist there to prevent them from taking tower, and you try and find roams, but Please Don't Run It hasn't found a roam timer quite yet, and curious to see when they will look for that, because now that they've got level 6, they have that kill threat available onto anyone this game. You know, effectively, you're living this game with about 75% health, but curious to see where this Pyke will go and strike first.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the squad hasn't needed the Pyke necessarily to be too active just yet. They've still been able to find an early advantage for themselves, able to pick up that first dragon as well. I think it's it's a couple more skill shots landing for Lyre. But I think it's a great call-out that you had just a little bit earlier on. It seems, or it looks to us like DPS is still playing like they're 10,000 gold ahead, like they were at the end of last game, and it's just not really going in their favor. As with some great punishes coming through here from the Rams. Their composition, I do think, is on a little bit of a timer here, perhaps, but with Caitlyn sitting at 3-0, you know, you have to imagine that they are in a fairly comfortable position at this point. Not able to get any turret plates down there just yet, but still looking pretty good. Still up a lot of gold.
And I think the main thing is, like, if we... This is the sort of stuff like in D&D, it's just a history check. We take a look back at DPS's game, or week 2 matchup, sorry, against Trebuchet. The exact same thing happened. They won game 1 handily, game 2.
Ignite dead. Woo, please don't run it. Gonna get taken out here. It's his first death here in game 2, but he's down 40 CS already at him, and that's gonna be another wave crashing. The bear is here to collect it, but this Pyke is kind of comically far behind, honestly.
It's the expected loss that you have when you pick Pyke mid lane. You need to find roams though, and Please Don't Run It has not found any roams yet. But yeah, as I was saying, with the if we use our history check here, it's a very similar situation where they had a very big game 1 victory and then sort of fell behind the curve in game 2. This time around though, they may have their saving grace being this Neeko mid lane because it's so far ahead.
There's a Neeko there. Here comes the Pop Blossom. Gonna find it onto 2, but Please Don't Run It has made his way down. The Pyke has roamed, but Dissipate is very low on HP. He's flashed in, looking for a little bit more to Fierce Barrel, but she flashes away and stays alive, and Please Don't Run It is not able to find a single enemy player with the death from below, and it just like that, Adam, just like that. We're all tied up at 5-5, and the gold lead is once again in the hands of DPS.
Yeah, just a 2,000 gold swing right there. They get the shutdown on to the Caitlyn, and you know who gets all of those kills? It's the Neeko and the Jinx. That is really who you want to have your gold on. And, you know, 2 out of your 3 carries now have a decent helping of gold for themselves. Talus is just hanging out, you know, doing Ivern things, waiting for the blue buff to prep itself. But realistically, it's such a... That was an insanely good silence there to stop the Caitlyn ultimate.
That was pretty nutty, yeah. I mean, theoretically, your bad connection could have tanked it, and the Soraka still would have lived, but yeah, that silence was pretty clean, as Messiah getting pillared a little bit here, getting chomped, whiffs the Vanguard's edge, and is just going to get taken out under his tower. Kingfisher, once again, is kind of the North Star, the shining light, the ray of hope for the Rams up here on that top side. 2-0 now on the Trundle. But with the Caitlyn shut down now with the Jinx. Oh, that's CS. Oh my goodness, that was close.
Yeah, Trundle passive actually saved them there, as a couple minions were dying right when that hit. So yeah, this game though, overall, it's been a really interesting sort of dichotomy in a lot of ways. We look at how bot lane has been going, and It's very similar to how top lane was going last game, but
Okay,
ooh,
please don't run it. Trying to set this one up. The Pop Blossom is pretty good. Once again, onto a hot dog. Gonna lock down the Caitlyn for now. Nico able to escape. Ivern is getting in there. A little bit of a 1v3 situation now for Talus. It looks like he's doing okay in there, but the hook into the death from below, and that will be a big shutdown going over to Please Don't Run It on the Pike. Very nicely done. Able to put himself on the board there. Talus now on his way out, but Dissipate has made his way over. Gonna stun up the tree, and that's another kill going over to the Pike. And now the gold lead tied back up. Slight advantage for the Rams.
And Caitlyn gets credit basically for both of those kills with the extra gold that you're able to get from Pike. So that's why that gold just went up 800, because Pike able to split those kills effectively. That's really where you get the gold back.
No
as
flash, no ultimate. The exhaust comes down. I really in some trouble here. One more chomp gonna do it. Yeah, that, well, Kingfisher made that one look pretty easy.
Yeah, and the gold lead gets reestablished here. Something that we need to point out as well, just the passive on Pike's ultimate there, getting your cut. It basically makes each kill count like 3.
Well, that's going to be the Stormbringer in. Fierce Bear run out of HP. Caitlyn, Gale Force in to pick up the kill. Your bad connection, though, able to trade back onto the enemy jungler. Zap will connect, preventing Caitlyn from following there. So 1 for 1 now in the bottom lane. These teams really starting to scrap back and forth. Become a very closely contested game. That's a lot of damage onto the Ivern, though. Caitlyn's still extremely powerful. Both AD carries, though, on that Gale Force completion. Yeah, looking pretty good for both.
Yeah, and actually of note, while all of that was happening, Messiah died top lane again, so it's first tower picked up for Kingfisher, who has completed the Hullbreaker. It's a complete change of fates here this game, where this Kingfisher has a 20 CS lead, has a 3-kill lead. This is the sort of lead that we wanted to see last game on this set, but they were down, 20 CS instead of up 20 CS. And the Pike, as we were saying, the Pike passive there, they can be down as much CS as they want, but they get a couple of kills with that ultimate. They're able to split that gold up, and each kill counts as 3 kills worth of gold, basically. Oh boy.
Flame Chompers come down. Wild Growth over the wall. Gives Pike a little bit more HP to survive. Now Dissipate is in there. Able to stun up Fierce Sparrow. Death from below is not going to come through.
Oh!
As your bad connection shoots him out of the sky. If the Pop Blossom is good, though. Able to lock down the bear as well. Ahata now burning down. Forced to retreat. Jinx and Nico still full HP. Trying to chase down this Caitlyn. They're not going to be able to do it, though. Caitlyn makes her way out. It's a 2-for-1 fight. Going in favor of DPS, for the Dragon goes over to the Rams.
Yeah, really well played coming through from Queen Lar to pick up that extra kill on the back end there. But yeah, Please Don't Run It going a little bit too far forward. Ends up getting shut down. This top side of the map, though, is looking a little bit scary at this point. This Trundle is just going to do exactly what their build suggests and sit in that top lane, consistently push, and just make s'mores up there. Really doesn't care about what Aurelia does because she's far behind. And we said Aurelia is a champion that's very feast or famine. They're 0-3, 109 CS. Is sort of in a famine right now, whereas Trundle is just doing the thing that they do.
Okay, here comes Spike once again. Please don't run it. Another nice roam, able to lock up the Soraka. Oh, but she flashes away, stays alive for now. Zap going to connect. Ace and Damon also extremely low. There's the getting excited for your bad connection, and now Pike forced to flash away, trying to stay alive. Zach gonna connect into the flash, into the rocket form. Your bad connection picks up another one. 6-1 and 3 now on the Jinx. Big ol' shutdown on his head, and bad connection. Oh, he wasn't ahead earlier, but now he is, and he can pick up right where he left off in game 1.
And that's the power of Jinx. We talked about why it is such a strong pick. Yes, she got laning phase nerfs, but it's not laning phase anymore. Your bad connection is online. Your bad connection is going to be firing on all cylinders, and it's going to be really difficult to take down this Jinx. She's got a 700 gold bounty, though, so if Pike is able to find that kill with the death from below, that's 3,000 gold going back over to your team. So that's where it starts to get scary. That's where, you have to be so cognizant of this Pike. But for the time being, Queen Lara almost has the Flame Horizon, which is always kind of fun to see, but it's 100% expected here when you've got a Pike mid lane.
Okay. We'll see if Please Don't Run It is going to be able to find a big impact later on. He's down 3 levels to the Nico as well. He's had a couple of good roams now, but I think he's going to need to find a little bit more in order to really make the pick worthwhile.
Yeah, and they have 37 CS. Normally, you expect to see a Iron Spike Whip or a Tiamat come through from the from the Pyke in this situation where you're able to clear waves, you're able to find roams like that, but seems like Please Don't Run It just a little bit too far behind to even afford those items, so going for just the strict lethality, but it's a curious situation because Please Don't Run It here on this Pyke. Look, Pyke mid is a good pick. I think that it has very well-defined strengths, which isn't its laning phase for sure. You basically always farm at a clip of 3-4 CS a minute on this champion, but they haven't been able to play it as effectively as I would have liked to see, and not really finding roams. Mazai's been a free roam this entire game, just for the record.
Okay, Tao's another aggressive look, but he has his team behind him here. That's the flash in for Queen Liar, forces the ultimate out of the Vaulted Bear. Stormbringer away will keep Dissipate alive. Now Fierce Sparrow now maybe a little bit deep behind enemy lines. That is the clone stepping on a trap, which is going to be just fine. And that was DPS not quite able to find their prey this time around. And that was the flash off of Queen Liar. So they spent a pretty big tool to look for that one. But no harm, no foul. They're still up about 1,000 gold with a couple of very strong scaling picks. Yes. Top lane, though, still going pretty well for Trundle, as we can see.
Pretty well. I think it's just fantastic. I mean, we don't need to beat around the bush when we're saying that this Trundle is fat. 2 completed items compared to none from the Aurelia, but Fierce Sparrow.
Okay, Soraka gonna get stunned up and just taken out. Please don't run it. Able to find another one there. That's the Super Mega Death Rocket. Gonna get Ace and Damon down 2-0. Rocket Belt will finish him off from Queen Liar there. That's a zap connecting, but Pyke is pretty slippery. He's gonna be able to make his way out of there in the end, but that does make it a 1-for-1 as both supports get taken out in mid lane.
And I guess that kill there is an example of why sometimes Pyke mid isn't the best, because when you're playing Pyke support, you're always going to be with your team. If you're getting a solo kill on Pyke, though, you're not giving your cut to anyone. So then you don't get as much gold from it. It doesn't end up having as much effectiveness. It's a really weird situation where you just end up sort of falling behind in that sense. So curious that is the situation. And continuing on sort of why Pyke is an interesting champion in general is that Pyke, because of how cheap their build is and how much gold they get early on, they hit full build extremely quickly. So in this situation, Please Don't Run It is just behind. Normally you would expect to see the Pyke on sitting 2-3 items at this point where they can start to one-shot some people, but it's still an interesting situation. I want to see
going to go for the Flawless Duet, but the Subjugate is more than enough. Oh my goodness, Adam, that Irelia just evaporated. I was like, okay, this fight is going to start. I can probably give Adam another second or two to try to finish his thought. But no, I shouldn't have even said anything, honestly. Like, Irelia just, like, it's like she was never even there.
And it feels like this game, she's never been there as well. But, you know, we saw Please Don't Run It trying to move up. He's trying to get more gold for himself, and Trundle says no. He kills him too quickly. They kill him too quickly, even for their own benefit for the team. But yeah, thus far, it's been a challenging road for Messiah here on this Aurelia. This is more akin to what we would expect when subs come through, is that sometimes they're not on the same page of their team, but still just trying to hold the door in a sense. This matchup can kilter extremely in either way, so yeah, it's tough because now you're looking at what will be a 3-item Trundle very soon, and Messiah going for the shield bow build ends up being a little bit riskier as well, because it's an item that sort of feasts or famines in a lot of ways, even more so considering it's Aurelia, so it's an interesting angle that they took. I wouldn't have minded seeing the Gore Drinker in this situation to play more for your team where you already have a strong team fight comp. You might as well just stack on that more with the Aurelia, but going for shield bow generally means that they want to go for 1v1s a little bit more, and they're already losing them pretty handily, so okay. Conversely, they just do this.
Well, Trundle is on the bottom side of the map, and he doesn't have a teleport, so this should be an honest 4v4. Barrett is down to about 2/3, I think. Yes, there is vision now, so the Rams know exactly what the situation is. We've got Please Don't Run It going for a little bit of a flank around the back here of the team fight. Soraka quite low. Gonna have to be careful there that she doesn't get caught out, but it's Pyke getting collapsed on a nice Pop Blossom. So much damage onto the bottom lane. Ahata barely able to stay alive with a Cleanse, Flash, Gale Force, everything used to escape from Queen Liar there. Pyke was able to escape, but Ace and Damon not so lucky. The turn ended up being too strong from DPS there, and Trundle still just hanging out in this bottom lane. And Pyke is by the enemy base somehow. But that means it's only Volibear, it's only Dissipate here, all by himself, all on his lonesome, trying to get them to get off of this Baron. It's still leashed. The Baron is burning down. I think this is going to be secured. Volibear had to vacate the area. And Caitlyn has made her way over, but there it is. Smite is good. Talus able to pick that one up. Death from below, flashed away by Messiah. Flame Tempers come down. Peeling away now is DPS up here on this top side. They got what they came for. They secured the objective and retreat back towards mid lane now. Herald was dropped. Herald number 2 was dropped by Dissipate. It's putting some pressure on that mid-tier 2 tower. Dissipate trying to zone these DPS players away, trying to prevent the defense from coming through. They will get a second charge there, and Trundle continuing to do work down there in the bottom lane as well.
Oh, Kingfisher's just ahead of the minions here. What? And
okay, wow. Kingfisher able to get the tower, going for the 1v1 now, but he's ignited, and Messiah finally able to turn this matchup around, able to get a big shutdown onto the Trundle, still sitting on Baron buff as well for the Irelia. See what kind of formation is going to come through now for DPS with this Trundle off of the map for 30 more seconds. A lot more options are at their disposal.
It's interesting to see that Kingfisher just doesn't wait for his minions. I think he stays alive and wins the 1v1 if he just waits. But, you know, it's at a certain point, you're just like, yeah, I can tank up this tower for a little bit. I don't mind. They end up getting the tier 2 tower, but it's a pretty big shutdown that you're giving over to the Irelia. And as we've mentioned, Irelia, one of those champions where you don't want to give her even an inch in a lot of these games. You'd rather have her be 0-4 at this point, 0-5, 0-6, as opposed to just 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, because that one kill sometimes is enough for Irelia to start taking over.
Well, that's going to be the Gale Force, and so much damage from Bad Connection, almost able to 1v2 the bottom lane, but Dissipate now in some trouble. That's the Super Mega Death Rocket coming out. Not able to fish anybody off just yet. It's please don't run it once again with an interesting flank angle here behind DPS. This Pyke is just so weak. He's got to find the perfect engage, and it's just so difficult. The tier 3 tower is down. Ace and Damon barely able to stay alive once again. Kingfisher getting ganged up on here underneath the tier 3 tower. The Trundle, the strong point for the Rams, gets taken out. Dissipate now underneath his Nexus towers, gets finished off. Please don't run it. Finally makes his way into the fight here, but it's too little. It's too late. The inhibitor gets taken out. They're on to the Nexus towers now, Adam, and looking like this could be the end of the match. Could be looking at a quick 2-0 here for DPS, as that is the CC, that is the kill onto the Caitlyn, and that will be the game, Adam. 2-0 Team DPS making a statement here and pushing the Rams farther towards the bottom.
My goodness, that was an interesting end to that game, to say the least. It was going so well in favor of the Rams for so long, but that one death onto Trundle actually ends up just turning this game on its head, ends up giving the opportunity for Jinx to just get excited in one of those fights in the mid lane where there's no front line to speak of, and once again, Your Bad Connection just comes out of the woodwork and shows off a fantastic performance. Look at how much gold this Jinx had at the end of the game, and the Pyke mid lane, I was holding out hope for it for so long, but it just wasn't played it wasn't played up to specs. In a lot of ways, it just missed the mark and ended up being more of a liability at the end of the game.
Yeah, I felt like I was saying, like, Pyke's really far behind, you know, 3 levels, like 40 CS, and you were like, yeah, but Pyke is supposed to lose lane, you know, he can find roams, he's still gonna be fine. I could tell you really wanted the Pyke mid to work out, Adam, but yeah, unfortunately, please don't run it. Just couldn't quite find the angles this time around, and you're absolutely right. Bad Connection really just popping off once again here on the Jinx. You know, winning against the Jinx and then with the Jinx. Really just a dominant performance, a dominant night from the bottom laner, or the bottom lane, the entire bottom lane of DPS here tonight. But Adam, who's your POG here for our second game? You're gonna look towards the jungler again, Talus on the Ivern. You know, he had a couple of overly aggressive invades early on.
It's Survivor. Yeah, every single time. I think that one is one where it was a lane matchup that wasn't looking good for the early levels there, especially after Ahata ends up going 3-0-0. But we just saw Your Bad Connection sitting back, waiting for their time to shine, to find a couple of really big fights there. It's just the power of lethal tempo there. We saw it pop off a couple of times there. And, you know, maybe Ahata's looking across and being like, yeah, I think encounter was a mistake in that one. But your bad connection just really showing why they are such a strong bot laner here. In a lot of ways, making a case for being one of the best AD carries that we've got in the league as well. And just having a fantastic performance on the Jinx. This is why you ban Jinx on red side every single time, because it's so easy to first pick, and even when you've got the lane counter pick for it, it's not a total counter pick. Jinx is inevitable, and she will end up popping.
Exactly right. I mean, Caitlyn was so strong in the early game. Remember when she was up so much gold, so many items on the Jinx, but in the end, yeah, it didn't end up mattering. It didn't matter how far ahead Caitlyn was in lane. Jinx popped off in the team fights and destroyed the Nexus. That's all she wrote. Any chance? Just like an Arcane, dude. Heckin' Arcane buffs coming through for bad connection. You think there's any chance we get him in here for a POG interview?
They're
status. They're gone.
They're all gone. Yeah, they all did.
Well, definitely a strong performance from DPS tonight. Let's see what their next matchup is going to be here. Looks like next week, Team DPS is going to be taking on Barbara's Fan Club. So that should definitely be an exciting one. A top of the table matchup next week. But later tonight, we are going to have Spectre Gaming taking on Predictive Gaming at 9 Eastern. So that is going to be in about 90 minutes. We have a little bit of a break since this first match ended so quickly. But yeah, Adam, you got any more thoughts on how this one played out?
Honestly, it just confirmed that DPS is one of those teams, despite it being what some may say is a slightly easier matchup in WCU Rams. They showed that they can still win when behind, and they were behind for a lot of that game. At the end of the game, they were only up by 4,000 gold, but a lot of that was just off of your bad connection. So I think this team, despite them playing a little bit fast and loose at times, they still need to be feared. And honestly, for a team like MG Element, who are looking across the rift and saying, hey, this team is someone that we've got to face at some point, and that's a real top of the table matchup now. Looking at it, it's going to be a fun series to cast. It's definitely a fun series to watch. You don't want to miss that one, because
that's week 6.
That's week 6. Yeah, that'll be what could be our finals matchup as well at that point.
Yeah, and even with the substitutions, right? We should come back and mention that again as well for DPS here. Even with the substitutions, they still looked this dominant, finishing game 2 in less than 24 minutes. That's pretty nutty, Adam.
Yes, that's crazy, and I think Queen Lyre deserves an honorable mention for both games because of the performance they were able to come through with, and just filling in on the Nico. Maybe after the game 1, it was like, okay, we can leave this up, but if you ever see Queen Lyre in that lineup again, I think just take away the Nico now.
I think you probably do, yeah. That is going to do it for us for now, guys. Be sure to come back in about 90 minutes. We will have some more BTL Week 4 action for you guys. Again, that is going to be Spectre versus Predictive in about 90 minutes. See you then. But for now, this is Crewman and Adam going to sign off.